So, you're building with generative AI on Amazon Bedrock, right? Well, this is the explainer you've been looking for. We're going to walk through exactly how to secure your applications and your data so you can build amazing things with total confidence. Let's jump right in. Look, you're tapping into these incredible foundation models to create stuff we could only dream of a few years ago. But, with all that power comes a pretty huge responsibility. How can you be absolutely sure that your private data, your users' inputs, and those custom models you're building are all locked down tight? That's the big question we are going to tackle today. All right, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to build up your security strategy layer by layer. First up, we'll get crystal clear on your role in this whole security picture. Then, we'll dive into protecting your prompts, mastering data encryption, controlling who gets in, and finally, building a network fortress around the whole setup.
Okay, first things first. Security, it isn't just an AWS job. Nope, it's a partnership, and it all starts with really understanding your part of the deal.
Pretty much everything about security on AWS boils down to this one core idea, the shared responsibility model. It's actually pretty simple. AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud. The actual data centers, the hardware, the global network. But you are responsible for security in the cloud. That's everything you build and run on top of that infrastructure. So what does that actually mean for you day to day? Well, AWS handles the physical security, the concrete and steel. But you're the one in charge of your data. That means you're controlling who can access it using Identity and Access Management, or IAM. You're deciding how it gets encrypted, and you're configuring your network. This right here, this is where you have all the power to secure your Bedrock apps. Okay, now that we're clear on our role, let's talk about protecting the real lifeblood of any GenAI app, the prompts, and the completions. How do we keep that conversation, that sensitive data, totally private? Before we get super specific to Bedrock, let's just cover some universal ground rules for data protection on AWS. First, please use multi-factor authentication, MFA, on your accounts. It is the single best thing you can do. Second, make sure all your connections are encrypted using something like TLS to stop anyone from snooping. Third, log all your activity with CloudTrail so you have a clear audit trail. And a little pro tip, never ever put sensitive info like secrets or emails in resource names or tags. It's just not the place for it. Now, this right here, this answers the number one question everybody has. And it's a direct quote from AWS. Your data is your data, period. Bedrock just acts as a pass-through. This means your prompts and your completions are never stored, they're never logged, and they are definitely not used to train any models. It's a foundational promise that lets you use the service with complete confidence. So, knowing your data is private is step one. Awesome. Step two is taking active control of its encryption, especially for the really valuable stuff, like your custom fine-tuned models. AWS has you covered when it comes to encrypting your data as it's zipping between services. That's a given. But when your data is just sitting there at rest, like a custom model you've poured weeks into fine-tuning, well, that's when you get a really important choice in how that encryption is managed. And here are your two main options. By default, Bedrock uses an AWS-owned key. It's seamless, it's secure, no fuss. But for many organizations, especially those with strict compliance rules, you're going to want a customer-managed key, a CMK. This puts you firmly in the driver's seat. You create it, you control its policies, and you get a full audit trail of every single time it's used. So this brings us to a really crucial question for your projects. When should you use a CMK? Well, if you need to prove to an auditor who accessed your data and when, or if you need the power to immediately revoke all access to an encrypted model, a CMK is your answer. It's all about control and auditability. And actually, implementing this is a pretty straightforward three-step process. First, you just pop over to the AWS Key Management Service, KMS, and create your key. Second, you attach a policy to it. Think of it like a permission slip that allows Bedrock to use that key. And finally, when you go to create your custom model, you just tell it which key to use by giving it the key's unique identifier, its ARN. Now here's the really clever part, how this all works under the hood without ever exposing your key. Bedrock uses a mechanism called grants. The best way to think about it is like giving Bedrock a temporary, single-use key to your safe. It gets just enough permission to do a specific job, and the moment that job is done, poof, the grant is retired. It's just a really elegant and secure way to delegate permission. And for those of you actually writing these key policies, think of this table as your cheat sheet. You're not just giving Bedrock blanket access. Oh no, you're granting very specific, very limited permissions. Create grant is what allows for that temporary key to the safe we just talked about. Describe key lets Bedrock just check that the key is valid before it kicks off a job. And the last two are for the core cryptographic work, one to create a unique key to lock your data, and the other to unlock it when you need access.
Okay, so we've encrypted our data. Check. Now we need to control who can actually use it. This is all about identity and access management.
And the tool for this job is AWS Identity and Access Management, or IAM. Honestly, it's like the central nervous system for permissions in AWS. IAM is how you define, with incredible detail, which users, which applications are allowed to do what on which specific resources. Let's walk through a classic scenario. Say you've built a chatbot application. You want it to be able to get responses from your brand new custom-tuned model. But, and this is a big but, you absolutely do not want that application to have permission to delete the model or mess with any other model for that matter. And the solution? It's beautifully simple. You create an IAM policy with just one rule. Allow the Bedrock invoke model action, but only on the unique ARN of your custom model. That's it. Nothing more. Now that application can talk to that one model and do absolutely nothing else. That, my friends, is the principle of least privilege in action. So what are your key takeaways for IAM? Well, start with the general policies AWS provides to get up and running, but always, always shrink them down to the absolute minimum needed. Use conditions to add extra layers of security, like, say, locking access down to only your corporate network. And definitely use tools like IAM Access Analyzer to automatically find and help you fix any policies that are a little too permissive. All right, we've secured the data with encryption and we've secured the access with IAM. Now for the final layer, building walls around our resources at the network level. The big goal here is to make sure that your communication with Bedrock never, ever has to go over the public internet. You can do this using an Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, a VPC, which is basically your own isolated slice of the AWS cloud. By creating a VPC endpoint with AWS Private Link, you establish a direct private connection from your VPC straight to the Bedrock service. It's like having your own private highway. So let's bring it all together. Your security strategy really rests on a few key pillars. First, define your roles. Understand that shared responsibility. Then, protect your prompts by trusting Bedrock's data handling. Encrypt everything, using customer-managed keys for that full control. Lock all the doors using least privileged IAM policies. And finally, build your walls by isolating everything in a VPC. It's a comprehensive approach. You see, following these steps gives you this really robust framework for security. It lets you innovate and move fast, knowing your data and your applications are protected. You have the tools, you have the knowledge. The only question left is, what are you going to build?